we could go back to the book, number 2 and 3. We've got enough. Here. 8 minutes? Do it twice. Yeah. believe that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the academic procession and the Chancellor.
I declare that the 554th Convocation of McMaster University for the conferring of degrees is now in session.
Please be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Allison Sekuler, and I'm the Acting Vice President Research of the university. This afternoon, I have the great pleasure of acting as your Master of Ceremonies and of welcoming you, graduands and guests, to this convocation ceremony. I'd also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge some of the notable leaders joining me on stage today. Dr. Suzanne Labarge, Chancellor, Dr. Patrick Dean, President and Vice Chancellor, Mr. Sean Van Kunit, Associate Vice President, Students and Learning and Dean of Students, Dr. Ken Cruikshank, Dean, Faculty of Humanities, Associate and Assistant Deans, Directors, Chairs, faculty members, and honored guests. Before we start our formal program, may I ask everyone in the hall to switch off any electronic device that may ring or beep or otherwise make noise during the ceremony. I would now like to call upon our Chancellor, Dr. Suzanne Labarge, to make her own welcoming remarks.
Welcome, honored guests, staff, faculty, families, friends, and most importantly, graduands. This is an exciting day for all of you who are graduating today, as well as for all those people who have supported you and stood behind you, and in many cases have had a key role in you being here today. You have achieved a great deal to get here, and you should all be very proud of your success and looking forward to what the future might bring. Congratulations, and enjoy the ceremony.
I'd now like to welcome Dr. Patrick Dean, President and Vice Chancellor, to the podium to present our honorary degree recipients.
Chancellor Labarge, by the authority of the Senate of McMaster University, I have the honor to present Barry Lord and Gail Dexter Lord. Barry Lord and Gail Dexter Lord, who co-founded and are co-presidents of Lord Cultural Resources, are the world's leading museum, gallery, and historic site planners. Ms. Dexter Lord has been an art critic, feature writer, and commentator for national print and broadcast media, while helping to develop interdisciplinary programs in film and photographic arts at Ryerson University. She has played key planning roles with the soon-to-be-open African American Museum of History and Culture in Washington, D.C., the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, the Harvard University Museums, the Museum of the African Diaspora, and the Bahrain Monument. She helped plan the award-winning Roald Dahl Children's Museum in England and serves on the jury for the International Children in Museums Awards. She's a frequent presenter at the American Association of Museums, the British Museums Association, and the International Council of Museums. Ms. Dexter Lord was also appointed an officer of the Order of Arts and Letters of France and has received both the ICOM Canada International Achievement Award and an Award of Merit for Lifetime Achievement in the museum field in Ontario. Mr. Lord, who completed his undergraduate degree at McMaster, served as a curator, education officer, and director at several art galleries and museums in Canada. He was, for example, assistant curator at the Vancouver Art Gallery and curator of art at the New Brunswick Museum. He curated the Painting in Canada exhibit at Expo 67 and served as head of education services at the National Gallery in Ottawa, and later assistant director of the National Museums Corporation, where he created the Specialized Museum program. He was also editor of Canada's national art magazine, Canadian Art, which he transformed into Arts Canada. As a consultant, Mr. Lord has helped plan many museums and galleries around the world, including, to list just a few, the Art Museum of Estonia, the National Aboriginal Art Gallery in Vancouver, the Princeton University Art Museum, the Louvre Abu Dhabi Maritime Museum, the National Art Museum of China, the Grand Egyptian Museum, the National Museum of the Philippines, and yes, the Graceland Museum and Visitor Center in Memphis, Tennessee. Mr. Lord was honored by McMaster in 2009 with the Distinguished Alumni Award. The team at Lord Cultural Resources has completed more than 2,200 assignments in 45 countries with institutions including the Tate Modern, the Pushkin Museum, the Museo Guggenheim in Bilbao, the World Trade Center Memorial, and the Louvre. Individually, as partners or with a third collaborator, Mr. Lord and Ms. Dexter Lord have edited or written several landmark works in their field, including History of Painting in Canada, Toward a People's Art, Planning Our Museums, the Manual of Museum Engagement, the Manual of Museum Exhibitions, the Manual of Museum Learning, Art and Energy, and Artists, Patrons, and the Public, Why Culture Changes. Chancellor Labarge, I have the honor of presenting to you a couple who together have helped preserve, interpret, and display a breathtaking amount of Canada's and the world's cultural heritage. I present Barry Lord and Gail Dexter Lord to you, Chancellor Labarge, so that McMaster University may recognize their exceptional contributions by conferring upon them matching Doctor of Laws degrees honoris causa.
Barry Lord, by the authority of McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to confer upon you the degree Doctor of Laws honoris causa in McMaster University with all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree. Congratulations. Gail Dexter Lord, by the authority of McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to confer upon you the degree Doctor of Laws honoris causa in McMaster University with all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree. Thank you. Congratulations. We'll now get you to sign over here. I would now like to invite Drs. Barry and Gail Dexter Lord to deliver the Convocation address.
Thank you.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, Dr. Sekuler, and Dean Cruikshank, distinguished guests, and all of you who are graduating today. We have to begin by thanking McMaster for honoring both of us with this degree. We're particularly impressed that McMaster has chosen to honor both of us because everything we've done together, and it's really, I think, a very progressive step to recognize both of us individually, not just one. So we're very impressed by McMaster's decision to do that. Now, I was first inspired at McMaster, of course, 55 years ago when I graduated here in honors philosophy. Subsequently, I was further inspired by the beauty of the visual arts after 2 summer jobs at the National Gallery of Canada to take the gallery's museum training program, and I began a career in museums. From there, after many twists and turns, Gail and I established our international cultural planning business, Lord Cultural Resources, 35 years ago. I could not then have anticipated that I would also have to thank McMaster for their role in giving me an even more significant type of inspiration, the power of physical inspiration that's simply breathing. 2 years ago, I was surprised to learn that my chronic cough was actually the deadly disease, pulmonary fibrosis. I'm alive and breathing here today because 6 months ago, I received a lung transplant at Toronto General Hospital, which happens to be the best place in the world to get a lung transplant. It was made possible for me by the creativity and diligence of the Firestone Institute for Respiratory Health at St. Joseph's Hospital here in Hamilton, for which McMaster appoints the faculty. Dr. Martin Roth, Director of Respirology and Research, and Dr. Stuart Pugsley, Director of Clinical Services, are the McMaster faculty at the center who not only got me through the 8-week rehab process that I had to go through in order to qualify for the Toronto General Hospital, but along with their brilliant staff of specialists, they also strongly recommended me to the hospital to take me on despite my age and my extremely weakened condition at that time. The medical staff of our institutions here in Ontario include some of the most inspiring people you'll ever meet. And so are the patients who are fighting for their lives. I want to take this moment to inspire you all to sign up as organ donors to save the lives of others. Your filling out one organ donation form can save up to 8 lives. And I'd like to inspire our provincial government to put funding of our hospitals back on the front burner. Due to budget cuts, the Firestone Clinic has just had to discontinue its inpatient program. It's going to be outpatient only. But the inpatient program is the one that qualified me for the transplant. I could not take it today. Between the 2 stages of McMaster's inspiration, the first spiritual 55 years ago and the second physical, has been a lifetime of work with cultural change, which President Dean outlined, planning for museums in countries around the world. After developing 5 manuals that instruct how to manage different aspects of museums, Gail and I have turned to the study of how cultural change, which is really what we've been dealing with, how cultural change impacts the world, where it comes from. Gail's latest book, Cities, Museums, and Soft Power, analyzes how museums and other cultural institutions can change communities for the better. My own most recent book, Art and Energy, How Culture Changes, published in 2014, shows how each source of energy obliges us to accept certain cultural values. I grew up in Hamilton with coal and its culture of production. But for the past 50 years, we've all experienced the culture of consumption that oil and natural gas made possible. Today, the advent of renewable energy is bringing with it a whole new culture of stewardship that is quite the opposite of consumerism. As students, most of you entered McMaster as consumers of education, but as graduates, you are entering the world as its stewards.
Barry has, I hope, inspired you with the value of stewardship. Stewardship of the body, send in those organ donor cards, please, and stewardship of the world, which means also concerning conserving the meanings of the world. My task is to surprise you with the idea of your own soft power. Soft power is the ability to influence behavior through persuasion, attraction, and agenda setting, not through military or financial coercion. It's a term that was invented in 1991 by Harvard scholar Joseph Nye to refer to the power of ideas, knowledge, values, and culture to solve international problems. But our years of work with museums and cities has taught us that museums and civil society institutions, such as the educational, social, and scientific organizations where many of you will begin your careers, have the capacity to influence human behavior in many unexpected ways to provide wisdom rather than mere information. Understanding difference, balancing conflict, taking action to meet human needs. Why do we think that museums have soft power? Well, there's two reasons, and I think that they're interesting. First, museums are trusted. Recent surveys in both Canada and the United States have found that museums are actually the most trusted sources of information, far outstripping government and news media. 77% of people who go to museums rate them equal or higher in trustworthiness than all other sources of information. That is, even more than the internet and teachers. Second, museums are stewards of real objects that have not been photoshopped into existence, from dinosaur bones to ballot boxes. The soft power of museums has inspired transformations of entire cities and communities. In 2000, L.S. Lowry's paintings of gray, monotonous, working-class life near Manchester, England, had the power to transform Salford, then the poorest city in Europe, into the most successful creative cultural hub in Europe. Winnipeg is not the most obvious location for Canadians' National Museum for Human Rights, but all the ingredients were there to inspire a project that has put Canada on the map for our positive role in promoting human rights, and even more importantly, for inspiring everyone who visits to take a stand for human rights. And yes, it displays a ballot box from South Africa's very first democratic election. Your McMaster education has provided you with plenty of soft power tools: literacy, knowledge, technology, and creativity. In the coming years, you will be faced with tough choices, whether to solve problems using your soft power or to revert to hard power. Barry and I wish you every success in applying your soft power to the stewardship challenges of the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lords, for your comments. It's nice to know that McMaster had a role to play in Dr. Barry Lord being able to be here today so that we can honor an alumnus who's contributed an enormous amount to the cultural community and the cultural environment. And Dr. Gail Dexter Lord, we are absolutely delighted to include you formally in the McMaster community, and also the contribution that you've made to create a world in which culture does have importance, and we need to recognize that more often, and we're just delighted to be able to honor two people who have done so. Thank you.
Dr. Patrick Dean will now come forward to present the graduands to our Chancellor for admission to their degrees.
Will the graduands please stand? Madam Chancellor, on behalf of McMaster University Senate, I present to you these candidates in order that you may confer the appropriate degrees upon them, and I bear witness that they are worthy and suitable. May I also request that you confer the appropriate degrees in absentia upon all those candidates who have successfully completed the required course of study but who are not present.
Graduands, by my authority and that of the McMaster University Senate, I have the great pleasure to admit those before me today and those in absentia to their individual degrees in McMaster University, with all of the rights and privileges pertaining to those degrees. My sincere congratulations to you all. Please be seated.
Graduates, I will now ask each of you to join me on stage so that the Chancellor and I may welcome you to the McMaster community of scholars.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that each graduate's name may be heard, it would be appreciated if during the presentation of the graduands, you would hold your collective applause to the end of each degree category. Thank you. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Doctor of Philosophy. Melissa Fung. Andrew Rezitnik. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Arts. Marufa Shinwari. Brandon Thomas Goth. Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Master of Communications Management. Peter Bailey. Christine Chantal Bernard. Cynthia Breen. Lonnie Samuel Cates. Marissa Diane King. Danielle Marie Mulvey.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts Honors. Faramors Afzali. Pierre Auguste Arens. Rama Al-Jaber. Eliane Al-Najir. Zainab Al-Salahi. Graciela Alanis. Ashley Allen. Alexander Constantine Alexopoulos. Maha Ali. Sanya Ali. Connor Alves. Dea Alushi. Sydney Marie Alves. Kathleen Elizabeth Anderson. Rene Jose Andrade. Nicholas Anthony Andre. Randall Christian Andrechu. Varesha Mansa Ankra. Amanda Arujo. Noah Gabriel Aresta. Benjamin William Armstrong. Julia Marie Arnone. Deanna Aubert. Simi Badwal. Maria Fakio Bage. Caitlin Balsovich. Vanessa Barnier. Melissa Kathleen Barrett. Maya Lucia Elizabeth Bazo Jimenez. Laura Michelle Baudin. Jordan Christine Beaupre. Tarisha Alisa Beniprashad. Janelle Belangieri. Paige Rebecca Bernard. Brooke Elizabeth Bingham. Kirsten Bird. Natalie Claire Light Boulay. Justin Nathan Aaron Botso. Kristen Bradley. Tyler James Brisland. Ifitoya Brooks. Dorothy Bruce. Zora Biora. Joshua Adam Burleton. Candace Alicia Barita. Julia Rochelle Buzzato. Daniel Anthony Cachuelo. Sean Callahan. Ryle Edward James Cameron. Nina Camilleri. Bianca Caramento. Erin Dorothy Elizabeth Cardwell. Elizabeth Carmichael. Taylor Marie Caroline. Catherine Chambers. Melissa Kim Chanfi. Natalie Denise Charette. Ashley Wenli Chiang. Laura Angelina Chiapetta. Lisa Marie Chamini. Matthew Michael Clark. Nicole Clark. Ellen Elizabeth Cocciarella. Jeanette Mary Cole. Jennifer Ashley Cole. Paige Collins. Shauna Collins. Laura Condi. Sarah Conrad. Michael Kornak. Rohan Cornelio. Jonathan Cortez. Gustavo Costa. Jordan Covey. Nicole Michelle Dawes. Jenna Rose DeMarchi. Cassandra Christina DeStefani. Celeste Olwen DeCare. Alora de la Fuente. Elizabeth Delaney. Daniela Andrea Delgado. Erica J. Delabato. Emily Rose DeMello. Kristen Demick. Brittany Morgan Donovan. Divya Doraj. Olivia Alexandra Dudnik. Sydney Catherine DeCillier. Calvin Akins. Hassan Ilawad. Jaslyn English. Ebony Evans. Ian Christopher Evans. Andrew Michael Fales. Caitlin Jean Falco. Andrew Christopher Leslie Foe. Kelsey Fedos. Talisa Ferrer. Rowan Firth Massey. Olivia Fleets Sosa. Joel James Fleming. Shanice Fokuo. India Susanna Fowler. Devin France. Nico Francella. Teresa Christina Francella. Amanda Rodriguez Freire. Jamie Gallagher. Gitana Gantithasan. Sarah Garcia. Saib Gautam. Jamie Geertsma. Emily Ann Giblini. Abigail Annette Gibson. Stuart Gibson. Emily Elizabeth Gillespie. Rachel Adrian Gilmore. Darian Gale Gladstone. Ariel Godell. Caitlin Gomez. Natalia Gongora Lasso. Jessica Goodjohn. Mariana Gavorchin. Tanisha Graham. Kristen Dawn Grant. Molly Jean Gregoire. Magdalena Gronowska. Kelly Lynn Halkovich. Patricia Harvey. Rachel Hayward. Francisco Evaristo Hernandez. Tiana Lee Hernandez. Keith Jordan Higgins. Erica Sharon Hill. Rond Irmes. Sophia Orlovich. Averly Huang. Sophie Hunt. Jihan Hussain. Emily Lauren Hussey. Daniel Andrew Ionico. Dean J. Irvine. Allison Ivan. Bree Sierra Jack Ittman. Kira Jameson. Alexander Edwin Janak. Ryan Yavor. Stefan Nikola Jermich. Alexandra Elizabeth Johnson. Laura Jones. Caitlin J. Jong. Ashley Karami. Artem Kamoff. Wesley Kerfoot. Omar Adam Kafaji. Varda Khan. Tiffany Lynn Kitagawa. Dylanique Anicia Knight. Reem Kablawi. Talia Kolick. Brandon Mitchell Cortliff. Valeria Curry. Magdalene Teresa Kaviachin. Joyalina Lagana. Kaylee Danielle Layton. Huckman Lee. Chun Lee. Natalie Sarah Legault. Caitlin Marie Leewald. Natasha Lay. Stephanie Lisho. Gemma Sarah List. Rhiannon Megan Lloyd. Madeline Dawn Locke. Rachel C. N. Lowe. Juliana Lopez Cerquera. Lisa Emma Lowridge. Brittany Luciti. Haley Rose Lukic. Lin Long. Hannah McDonald. James Alexander McDonald. Kayla McIntosh. Gersawarn Carr Mulhey. Karishma Manani. Ryan Stephan Marksick. Miriam Lewis Martens. Natasha Martinez. Lucas Alexander Mascoto Carboni. Joshua Morin. Stephanie Angela McCardle. Sarah Louise McCarran. Claire Margaret McClung. Madeline McMillan. Ashley Ann Mendoza. Ian McEwen. Amber Francine Dawn Miller. Hillary Noel Miller. Daniela da Silva Miranda. Samhita Mishra. Nazreen Modi. Miles Alexander Malkinen. Olivia Monardo. Sean Britton Muirhead. Jasmine Alicia Mullen. Tegan Kennedy Murphy. Jonathan Murray. Jonathan Michael Nadeau. Rabida Nakfi. McNakshi Nauratan. Megan Teresa O'Connor. Sarah Lisa O'Connor. Catherine Ann O'Donnell. Louisa Elizabeth Orford. Valerie Marie Orsolak. Rema Osai. Teresa Marie Pagliaro. Paul John Palazzo. Lauren Panzarella. Shay Popke. Alexandra Catherine Pappas. Chelsea Megan Marie Paquette. Madison Annalise Parker. Mary Parsons. Natasha Patel. Andrea Pon. Joanna Palowski. Jessica Inez Perez. Jessica Petrenti. Janice Fonapersuth. Alexander Daniel Pacini. Michael Andrew Piccoli. Pimentel Daidone. Julia Plummer. Kadrian Jacqueline Poku Stewart. Michelle Yukmurmpun. Shauna Megan Powell. Devin Power. Evelyn Kira Priestley. Michael Ramsundar. Aurelia Lucien Rao. Zachary Adam Rasmussen. Haley Lorna Regis. Brittany Maleka Remedios. Anna Katrina Reyes. Melanie Ann Riva. Sydney Karen Grace Roberts. Nicholas Alexander Robitaille. Rafaela Ronchi. Emily Rosebush. Rachel Rawson. Julia Carol Ritz Rowett. Shelby Lynn Rowland. Juliana Elizabeth Rolls. Rachel Marie Ruby. Nicholas Calvert Ritz. Cassandra Natasha Russ. James Nicholas Rutledge. Jennifer Helga June Sage. Tyler William Sala. Rueda Sali. Alexander James Salas. Matthew Robert Saunders. Megan Elizabeth Shabla. Laura Schmidt. Nazariel Scott. Kelly Seeprasad. Claire Louise Shingleton Smith. Melissa Victoria Scudra. Oliver Sless. Alexandra Smarriage. Victoria Elizabeth Smurleys. Brianna Smith. Caitlin Diana Smith. Christy Smith. Helen Margaret Snow. Jasmine June Sanofsky. Jessica Ann Subas. Tejane Squire. George Edward Stanford. Ryan Alexander Sullivan. Malika Swale. Alexandra Denise Sire. Amisha Marie Sykes. Marcian Tanada. Carly Elizabeth Thackeray. Chao Ching Ting. Alma Torek. Jessica Toriano. Emily Helen Viana. Shauna Vala. Amore Van Heerden. Miranda Gabrielle Vandervliet. Victoria Varosky. Catherine Margaret Verdoni. Karen Gabriela Villalobos. Megan Elizabeth Viveros. Emma Marie Vondervoort. Michael McElwain Walker. Elaine Viola Westenhofer. Sarah Emma Catherine Whitwell. Emily Jessie Wicks. Marshall Wilcox. Candace Wilkinson. Jessica Lee Williams. Jonathan David Hamilton Williams. Kylie Wilson. Amber Lee Wilson. Cassandra Evelyn Wiltshire. Sally Blossom Wright. Jinwan Jing. Jessica Yi. Alexandra Catherine Zavaritsi. Yu Chen Zhou.
Madam Chancellor, may I present you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Fine Arts Honors. Sadie Michelle Beatty. Ryan James Breuer. Talisha Bujol Abu. Vincent Salvatore Furato. Abadar Gameiri. Lydia Elvira Santia. Alyssa Rose Silverman. Madam Chancellor, may I present you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Music honors. Elizabeth Mary Aumonier. Alexandra Grace Balian. Andrea Michelle Margaret Brzezinski. Emily Kumtwa. Stuart Richard Thomas Crocker. Laura Curtis. Blake Robert Fleet. Isabella Catarina Giuliano. Brianna Lee Gordon. Hector Johnny Guzman. Adam Joseph Hotz. Jenna Lampman. Cassandra Elizabeth Mallory. Emma Marie Margouch. Jennifer Lynn McDonald. Emily Ngoyen. Andrew Pellegrino. Nolan Bradley Peter Poot. Michaela Katie Christina Solomons. Jason Scotsari. Kaushalia Savanasan. Andrew Sporsik. Christopher Stevens. Matthew Stodolak. Ting Ting Wang. Taylor Russell Webb.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts and Science honors. Rabia Nasreen Ahmed. Jennifer Ackerman. Miranda Young Babbitt. Eli Batter. Claire Patricia Hanning Brown. Charles Duncan Chambers. Carolyn Elizabeth Chong. Eileen Church Carson. Delia Ruth Cohen. Nathan Elliott Capito. Yara Hyder Farran. Catherine Elizabeth Farrell. Kira Elizabeth Feldman. Susie Flater. Beatrice Ann Fletcher. Emily Fong. Jessica Elizabeth Gillia. Haley Michelle Goldfarb. Kathy Huang. Rebecca Haupt. Rita Ishu. Shireen Jacob. Loretta Marie Kerr. Sabrina Lucia Kirby. Joelle Hélène Marie Laroche. Max Lazar Kurz. Erin Margaret Lee. Effie Lynn. Christopher Quinn Litvin. Ryan Olip. Arjun Patel. Yelena Polexic. Anna Maria Chari. Abraham Tekla Reda. Samantha Angela Rossi. Paul Joseph Samitsky. Alok Shah. Yulin Shan. Sabrina Ann Sibbald. Lindsay Ariella Stitt. Emma Catherine Seshkoff. Saad Ahmed Syed. Lauren Louisa Tabone. Lauren Louisa Tignanelli. Zachary Barrett Williams. Jason Wu. Sophia Nicole Ikema. Sabrina Zhu.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts. Sana Ali. Kyle Patrick Angelo. Christopher Argoso. Emily Spencer Ashbaugh. Shamiram Benjamin. Kevin Douglas Stewart Brick. Jeanette Britannico. Susan Marie Buchan. Sarah Castelli. Just one right. Is she up there? Okay. Alida Janet Del Signore. Pinderjeet Dada. Lucas Durante. Robert Hermeta. Christian Albert Ferracuti. Dustin Rockwell Hayward. Joel Henderson. Nadine Hermes. Kari Hill. Melissa Hobson. Donna Marie Yelutzi. Sumanpreet Kang. Nikisha Marie Kirby Reed. Lauren Nicole Kokkonen. Emilia A. Luso. Robert Marsala. Katrina Carol Medaille. Emily Ann Moeller. Justin Ian Monaco Barnes. Stephanie Rachel Petrie. Jade Marie Dawn L. Pingle. Marianne Pocoradi. Sabra Rawash. Haley Snow. Ethan Stacy. Molly Sullivan. Nathan Sutandar. Melanie June Swinton. Sarah Mariam Temor. Nicholas James Whiffen. Matthew Servos.
Madam Chancellor, may I present to you the following graduates of the degree Bachelor of Arts and Science. Rachel May Liu. Imaya Ravichandran. Haley Donna Slaviero McCarthy.
Please join me in a round of congratulations for all of today's graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my extreme pleasure to introduce Ms. Susie Flater, a graduate of Arts and Science Honors Program who will be delivering the valedictory address.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, McMaster faculty, honored guests, fellow alumni, and members of the McMaster class of 2016. My name is Susie Flater, and I am a student in the McMaster Arts and Science program. I am honored to be standing here today representing both Humanities and Arts and Science students as 2016 valedictorian. At first, I was intimidated by the thought of writing a speech appropriate for both of our communities. After all, we are quite different in a lot of ways. But then I realized that there is a key experience that ties many, if not all of us, together. It takes place in that moment after you have explained to someone that you are an arts and science or humanities student. It is when that person then takes a pause, tilts their head a bit, and says some variant of, "So what are you supposed to do with that degree?" I remember being asked this question for the first time and not quite knowing how to respond. I have heard the stereotype that arts-based degrees are useless and a waste of time, but my own academic experiences have taught me that these stereotypes could not be more wrong. The courses in our faculties force us to read and write, to reflect and criticize, and to be respectful of positions that we may not have originally considered. We have learned to think critically in a variety of settings and surrounded by a diverse group of people. Whether in the lecture hall, tutorial room, lab, or studio, I believe that most of us have been asked to tackle questions that do not have simple or single answers. While we may have been taught to define our terms, to many it has probably become clear that these definitions can almost always be criticized by someone else. But that's okay, because we know how to take on challenges and adapt to new situations. We have been taught to promote kindness and justice in a world too often riddled with prejudice, violence, and hate. I hope that in the wake of such events as the mass shooting in Orlando just days ago, we have all been able to refer to something we learned as students in order to help us be more effective allies and better overall global citizens. Fellow graduates, I am here today to say that what we have accomplished throughout our undergraduate years is likely much more admirable than what we may have even initially considered. That the tuition fees, caffeine addictions, all-nighters, solar/mosaic battle scars, and thesis-related panic attacks were worth today's final outcome. The degrees we will be receiving are much more than expensive pieces of paper with fancy writing on them. They will serve as lasting reminders of our life-shaping university experiences. When you dotted that last period on your first formal essay, or when you sat beside that stranger in lecture who turned out to become your best friend, when you mastered the art of Photoshop, or when you found that perfect study space that may or may not have also been where you watched Netflix and YouTube videos of cute baby animals. Today is the day that we receive our degrees, but our degrees must not only serve as reminders of this moment in time. We have done a lot of growing up in the last few years, and our degrees should remind us of this lengthier part of our stories. There is so much potential within this group of graduates sitting in this room. Sure, a lot of us may not know exactly where we're going to be in the future. And even if we think that we do, there is a very good chance that our plans will change at some point. What is important to consider is that each of us has developed at least some unique skills in university that we will be able to use throughout our lives. So, before the day comes to an end, make sure to give yourself a pat on the back for all of the hard work that you have put into your undergraduate career. And also make sure to thank those people in your life who have helped you get to this point. I do not know where I would be without my supportive family, friends, professors, TAs, and various other mentors. Though we may have sometimes thought it, we were never really alone in this whole university thing. And with that, I conclude my address. Have a wonderful rest of day and enjoy your celebrations.
Thank you, Susie, for your words of wisdom and inspiration. I now call upon our president, Dr. Patrick Dean, who will present the Distinguished University Professor.
From time to time, the Senate of McMaster University awards the title of Distinguished University Professor to exceptional individuals whose contributions in scholarship and in education are truly outstanding. This is McMaster's highest honor for its faculty members. Madam Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of McMaster University, I have the honor to present McMaster's newest Distinguished University Professor, Dr. Lorraine York. The Senator William McMaster Chair in Canadian Literature and Culture. Dr. York helped establish the critical foundation for contemporary Canadian literature, beginning with her first book, The Other Side of Dailiness, photography in the works of Alice Munro, Timothy Finley, Michael Ondaatje, and Margaret Lawrence, followed by, among other works, Front Lines, the fiction of Timothy Finley, which was the first monograph devoted to that author. A founding member of McMaster's Women's Studies program, Dr. York also published Rethinking Women's Collaborative Writing, Power, Difference, Property, a work that illuminates the often asymmetrical power relations that drive women's co-authorship. Dr. York has been a pioneer in the emerging field of Canadian celebrity studies. Her 2007 book, Literary Celebrity in Canada, was a finalist for the Raymond Klebanski Award, and Margaret Atwood and the Labor of Literary Celebrity received a full-page review in Maclean's magazine and was nominated for the Gabriel Roy Prize for the best work of Canadian literary criticism in 2013. Dr. York and her co-author Michael Ross received honorable mention for the Don D. Walker Prize for the best essay from the Western Literature Association for their paper published in Canadian literature titled Imperial Commerce and the Canadian Muse, the Hudson's Bay Company's poetic advertising campaign of 1966 to 1972. Dr. York is also co-director of McMaster's Center for Community Engaged Narrative Arts. Finally, Lorraine York has long been one of our university's most decorated teachers and graduate supervisors. She was a finalist for the MSU Teaching Award for Humanities in 1989 and the winner in 1990, as well as a two-time winner of the President's Award for Graduate Supervision. Congratulations, Dr. York. Lorraine. Thank you so much. Well done. We're going to move the prize.
Congratulations, Lorraine. May I now introduce Ms. Alyssa Lai from the McMaster Alumni Association. Alyssa will deliver the Alumni Association address.
Chancellor Labarge, President Dean, McMaster faculty, fellow alumni, honored guests, and especially members of the McMaster class of 2016. The first time we did this, it was 122 years ago, and there were 16 of you. The events of commencement, as Convocation was known then, were a little different than today's ceremony. In 1894, McMaster's first Convocation included a sermon, the reading of graduate thesis, yes, they read that out word for word, and wait for it, the conferring of 60 honorary degrees. The black graduation gowns worn back then were made of alpaca and lined with white satinette for the arts grads and lavender for graduates from the theology. One of the graduates wearing alpaca that day was a young woman named Elizabeth Wells. She later published a description of the ceremony in Canadian Magazine. In that article, she wrote of McMaster's first Convocation. She said, "The enthusiasm showed by the students who sat mass in the body of the large assembly showed plainly that they were filled with the spirit of loyalty to their university." Well, I'm not sure if 16 people in alpaca gowns count as mass, but the feelings of enthusiasm and pride were likely valid observations. I hope you have similar feelings today. I know I did when I graduated. Today, our university is very different from the McMaster Elizabeth Wells knew 122 years ago, and our institutional history and credentials are far more robust. Today, as we welcome you as the newest members of Mac Alumni family, I hope that McMaster has earned your enthusiasm and loyalty through its service, excellence, leadership, and accomplishment, just as you have worked hard to earn our pride in you and our loyalty to you. The McMaster Alumni Association's goal is to take your connection to McMaster beyond the feelings that are so strong today and help make it a lifelong connection of substance. In your lives as alumni, the association will work hard to keep you connected. You will receive the McMaster Times Alumni Magazine, the e-newsletter Maroon Mail, and you can be part of the association's communities on social media. Whether you're an international student, born and raised Hamiltonian, or someone looking to make the city your home, we have something for everyone. As new grads, you can sample activities and opportunities from our Mac 10 program, a series of events and services that includes social activities, career assistance, and online and in-person networking. We have also added a mentoring program that gives you access to the wisdom of hundreds of fellow Mac grads through a searchable database. Throughout your life, you can take advantage of value-added services like home, auto and life insurance, mortgages, credit cards, and travel services. Yes, those two come in handy in future, I tell ya. You can also join your fellow alumni at one of the hundreds of events we organize annually in Hamilton, across Canada and across the world. There's much more information at alumni.mcmaster.ca and in the Convocation booklet with your first McMaster Times. All you really need to know for now is that the McMaster Alumni Association and the Mac Alumni family can be part of your McMaster experience in a big way or a small way anytime you like. When you're ready, the McMaster Alumni Association will be too. One last thing. The Alumni Association is running a contest to help you spread your wings after graduation. We're giving away a $1,000 travel voucher and a host of other swag and tickets. Just go to alumni.mcmaster.ca to find the entry information. So to the class of 2016, I offer my most sincere congratulations on your academic accomplishments, on your graduation, and on your first moments as members of the Mac Alumni family. You should be extremely proud of what you have achieved. I certainly am. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's now a pleasure to invite Dr. Dean back to the podium to deliver his President's Address.
It's a great pleasure to be able to say a few words to you before we come to the end of the proceedings this afternoon. I wish I had known 40 years ago when, as a student in the Humanities, I was asked the same question Susie described to you, the question with the arched eyebrows, and what are you going to do with that degree? It's been a remarkable life for which the groundwork was laid by my study in the Humanities many years ago. There have been some important points made from this podium this afternoon. I'll pick up Susie's point about the importance of the wisdom that you glean through the study in the humanities and in the arts and science program, and the ability of students in possession of that power to shape society. And that was, of course, the theme that Gail Lord picked up in her comments on soft power. I want to underline something essential about the education you've received here at McMaster, and about education in general. And that is that learning is a profoundly social activity. We learn by dialogue with others, whether the interaction is electronic or through the pages of a textbook, or whether the other party in the dialogue exists as a professor, a mentor, a classmate, or a character in a novel. Education is impossible outside of society, just as society is impossible without education. The American philosopher and education reformer John Dewey made the point more than a century ago, beginning with this simple declaration: I believe that the school is primarily a social institution. Dewey's progressive education movement held that education is not simply a social activity, but it is also, importantly, the agent of social reform. Dewey argued that the education system at that time, here we're talking about the end of the 19th century, failed to recognize the school as a form of community life. Instead, and here's a quote from Dewey, it conceives the school as a place where certain information is to be given, where certain lessons are to be learned, or where certain habits are to be formed. The value of these is conceived as lying largely in the remote future. The student must do these things for the sake of something else he or she is to do. They are mere preparation. As a result, says Dewey, they do not become part of life experience of the student, and so are not truly educative. True education for Dewey is not preparation for life, but life itself. It is the driver of human progress and the critical means by which society is made and continually remade. Dewey articulated this in 1897 in a document called My Pedagogic Creed, which is still relevant today. Universities continue to insist that their mandate is not simply to provide vocational training, but to educate citizens to shape society. So it is no coincidence that Dewey is heavily cited in a 2013 report to the European Commission, which seeks to reimagine post-secondary education on humanistic principles, and by so doing, contribute to Europe's social and economic renewal. Education may be a powerful agent of social reformation, but if it only reinforces an existing framework, it becomes the enemy of progress and reform. You heard from Barry Lord earlier on about one of the ballot boxes from the first South African democratic election. 50 years of apartheid in South Africa was facilitated by formidable police and military forces inside the country, of course, but education was the real and most effective tool of oppression. That is why the Soweto riots of 1976 began with students, school children, protesting against an alien language of instruction. Here in Canada, the legacy of the residential school system has also proven how the power of education can be turned to destructive purposes, to advance the cultural hegemony and political control of one group over another. Society made homogeneous through suppression, extermination, or assimilation is not society as Dewey imagined it, nor is this a model that can be called education in any real sense. It is forced acculturation using the apparatus of education. Interestingly, the genesis of Canada's residential school system coincides historically with the emergence of the progressive education movement south of the border. The Mohawk Indian Residential School opened nearby in Brantford in 1831, but it was in the latter half of the 19th century that the system took shape and the policy that drove it became apparent. After the Constitution Act of 1867, Canada formally adopted a policy of assimilation, and the Nicholas Flood Davin Report 12 years later declared in language that is still shocking that, quote, "the aim of education is to destroy the Indian." Duncan Campbell Scott, Superintendent of Indian Affairs in the Canadian government from 1913 to 1932, spoke of the need, quote, "to get rid of the Indian problem." Continuing the process of acculturation, he said, "until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic, and there is no Indian question and no Indian department." In 1920, Scott drafted an amendment to the Indian Act, making it mandatory for all Native children between 7 and 15 to attend school, attendance at residential schools becoming compulsory. This curious contrast shows that even where there is consensus that education has the power to shape society, it does not follow that the inevitable outcome of education is democracy, enlightenment, and the realization of human potential. You have to work for these things. If our country is to right the wrong caused by the residential school system and evolve as it should, education must be returned to its Dewey-esque purpose and become actively engaged in social reform. It must work to bring us all into what might be called a commonwealth of knowledge, infinitely rich and complex, admitting diverse perspectives and epistemologies because of the infinite richness and complexity of society. It is little wonder that so many of the calls to action in the 2015 report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada directly address education. 6 seek to redress the immediate legacy of the residential schools by reforming the funding and administration of education for Indigenous young people and counteracting the alienation of students from their heritage. Many others address the need to educate non-Indigenous Canadians about Indigenous issues, especially those gifted with a university education, those in public roles, whose own education, whether they know it or not, gives them the power to shape our society. Thus, doctors, nurses, journalists, lawyers, and all of you are enjoined to acquire the intercultural competency to make them active agents of a new Canada founded not on exclusivity, coercion, and force, but on inclusivity. As Indigenous educator Roberta Jameson recently noted in the Toronto Star, to make reconciliation work, non-Indigenous Canadians will have to invest and invest time. It is a scandal that for nearly a century, our country turned education to the diabolical purpose of destroying the Indian. For all who cherish their work as educators, this is cause for indignation, great grief, and regret. But today, here, is a moment of great promise. You have been nurtured at McMaster in a tradition of progressive education. You've acquired not just the information necessary to perform a particular task valuable to our economy, but knowledge and wisdom derived more broadly from our communal life and therefore potentially transformative of our society. Graduates, the point of celebrating your success, as we have done it today, is to underline the extent to which your individual achievements are also social achievements. This is a communal event because the meaning, quality, and richness of our life together on this planet is ultimately the point of education. And for that reason, this physical place is highly significant. It is literally the ground of our coming together and the emblem of our deeper commonality, kinship, and shared aspirations. It is hung with flags. We have decorated it with the iconography of a culture many of us share. Yet our obligation as educators must be to grow in dialogue with other iconographies and histories, not blindly, indiscriminately, or sentimentally, but as thinking, feeling, complete human beings. Education thrives on the sheer abundance of our existence. I will end where at future convocations I intend us to start, by recognizing and acknowledging that we meet on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations and within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. To say that is to acknowledge a debt to those who were here before us, and also to speak against those teachers, clerical and secular, whose project over nearly a century was to alienate peoples from their history and culture, and to make of the educational process the very antithesis of what it ought to have been. I could not be more proud to stand with you in this meeting place, pondering just what, moving on from here, you will be able to do with our society and our world. Good luck. Thank you.
Congratulations to the class of 2016. As Ms. Lai eloquently said, you're now all graduates and members of the wonderful group of alumni. And as a fellow alumna, I'm looking forward to see where you all go from here. Doctors Barry and Gail Dexter-Lord, congratulations on your accomplishments. They've shown us what can be contributed to society, and I think that's an important message for all of us to receive. Dr. Dean, you've given us a lot to think about. The value of education is an amazing thing. It can destroy, it can build. And we've been fortunate, and I'm going to look back as a fellow alumna. And I can answer Susie's question of what do you do with that degree? And the answer is anything you want. You can be a CEO, you can be a university president, and everything in between. And that's the value of what we learned here as I look back. I can't remember any specific thing I was taught here. But I do know that it taught me how to think critically, how to like to learn, and how to seek to continue to build my knowledge base. And that's held me in very good stead all my life. But even more importantly, to go back to the societal point that Dr. Dean made, when I came here, and it was a far less diverse university, just as Canada was far less diverse at that time, it moved me into a completely different environment. I met people I'd never had the chance to meet in my cocoon in Ottawa. It gave me access to ideas that I'd never run across before. It helped me understand other people, other thoughts, and it helped me grow and move my comfort zone far beyond where it was before so that I could play a more active role in society. And I think from everything I've heard from students I meet, McMaster continues to do that. So as a fellow alumna, I really encourage you to ensure that we keep McMaster this way and that we act as stewards, if you want, for the future to ensure that other people have the same benefit that we do. And I've had the benefit of listening to President Dean's address for, I think, 3 or 4 times now, and I will more this week. But every time I do, I hear something different. And there's a profound message there, and I really can encourage you to get a copy of the speech because it resonates so well to what's happening in society today. But on that note, I know that you have pictures to be taken and parties to go to, and I really just want to wish you all very well in your future lives. I have a couple of housekeeping items to tell you about before we close. A reception will be held for the Humanities graduates and their guests immediately following the ceremony at the Art Gallery of Ontario's Pavilion and Sculpture Garden. The reception for the Arts and Science Program graduates and their guests will be immediately following the ceremony at the David Braley Health Science Center Auditorium. Flowers that have been delivered for graduates will be available at the coat check in the main lobby. I would ask that you please remain standing at your seats until the academic procession and the graduates have left the hall. Finally, please join now in the singing of our national anthem. After the singing of the anthem, this convocation stands adjourned.